All right, folks. Hi, it's Pops, and man, it's raining. So hopefully things will go okay doing this. But I want to put it off. I want to talk about a debate, and I'm going to put that in quotes. The debate uh, on YouTube. Ethan Van Sciver and Taylor C. Mitchell had a conversation about Comicsgate, and I want to be transparent with everything where I'm coming from here. Until about a year ago, I didn't even know what Comicsgate was. Just didn't follow this kind of stuff. I've been collecting comic books for decades, and just really kind of got out of it, especially over the last few years. Just didn't find many of them interesting. They weren't my thing. A lot of the artists and writers that I was really into were doing other things now, away from some of the mainstream characters that I really loved. So it's kind of got away from it. And then as I really was getting back into things, and I've talked about this a little bit on one of my other videos, I started to find this thing. There's a couple of channels were talking about it, and I read down that rabbit hole. Then I found that Ethan Van Sciver had this podcast, almost like a radio show, basically, that he does nearly every day, bringing in all these comic artists. And I'm like, man, this is crazy. What are they doing? They're all promoting this Indiegogo work, and they talk about how they left the industry, different things like that. So it was really quite fascinating. But then I realized that there's this other counterculture conversation about how they're a hate group and they're all this. I didn't know any of this was happening. So over the last few months, I've kind of caught myself up on some of this stuff. I know even during this conversation, Ethan's name dropping, like I don't know if Vox Day is. I don't know where some of this stuff is. So I want to talk about the debate, though, because there really isn't a debate. They really didn't really talk about Comicsgate much at all. I think Taylor Mitchell came with a certain type of agenda. And I think that this conversation, if I'm going to call it that, not a debate, is a very clear indication of the left and right politics, how politics has infused everything, especially comic books, how all of this can sort of reflect the divide that we're having, which is a theme on my News Talk channel. That show will be tomorrow night at 6. And you can catch that on YouTube and Facebook as well. The other thing, too, is I wanted to go ahead and see. I was trying to Google Ethan. I watched the entire thing. He also read as a follow-up. He had like almost like a transcript or notes, and I have no idea where he got that from, because I really would have loved to be able to go through some of the high points. So now you're just going to have to go off some of my notes, making sure I don't miss certain things. But I found another video of someone talking about it, and I think it is also very, very clear. So first things first, full transparency. I didn't even know who Taylor Mitchell was, so this is my first exposure to him. I don't mean anything. I'm going to come across as probably attacking him more personally than I mean to. Taylor, if you would ever hear this, I mean this as more of a representation of your approach, tactics, tone, those things, rather than you. I don't know if you were having a good day, bad day, or whatever, but I think there's certain things that we can pull out of that are indicative of a bigger picture. I have met Ethan Van Sciver. He was one of my first interviews I did. I did it back in 2003 at Tampa Comic Con. It was a very entertaining. He has kind of that flair for the gift of gab, and a very entertaining persona that I met back then. And I've enjoyed meeting him a few times over the years where I was going to different conventions, MegaCon, for instance, some of the local shows down here in Florida. And he was always nice to me. Most of the folks that are on his videos were nice to me when I've met them as well. So I have no real skin in the game for like the hate element to all this. I'm not privy to that. I'm going to get to maybe a couple things that have happened over the last couple months at the end of my video, I think. So let me get to the video itself. The right and the left are having this really hard time talking with each other. And I think that where Ethan's coming at it from the right and Taylor's coming at it from his side, you start to see that Taylor ended up not talking about the topic at hand. Comicsgate kind of got lost in the shuffle, and it become, this same thing. Oh, there's all these, and I'm going to generalize, stuff that's not in the debate is also just what I've seen. And what I've seen is people will just say, creators on Twitter will say, articles will put hyperlinks to things that date back over the last 3 or 4 years. These are hateful people. They've doxed people. They say terrible things to people. And I want to give Ethan credit because he handled all that very well, in the sense of Taylor didn't want to hear it, but reality is it's sort of an internet thing. This has no right or left to it. There is a culture on both sides. that there are fringe elements of people that treat opponents badly. And I think that when things get publicized, depending on your position, your followers, your topic that we're talking about, people will respond. We see this with celebrities all the time. So I don't see people on the left attacking people on the left over this. Hollywood celebrities are notorious, right? They will just say just crazy, incendiary things. I don't see them policing their own as well as the right. I think people on the right tend to kind of wrangle people in, say you need to take this down, you take that down, whatever. Now, look, you get to a more faceless individual or people that are pretending with fake accounts, because we know that's been a thing. You'll see that people get away with some pretty crazy stuff, up to and including doxing and threats, and it's awful. As far as how it went, I listened to one video, and I got one here I'll queue up here in a second because I want to get to that one. I think the weird thing for me is that Ethan has sort of like three roles that he kind of is playing, right? He is the comic book artist and creator, right? So I see him as this creator from obviously the Green Lantern fame with other different projects that he did over the years, and now he is the Cyberfog creator. Then I see he has this role as sort of like YouTuber news channel, mostly pop culture themed story coverages with his political commentary mixed in, because politics have been infused in everything. And it's just silly to pretend that's not the case, because it is. Politics are pretty much mixed in everything. Then I think there is the YouTuber provocateur who enjoys the fight a little bit. You know, this guy lives in New Jersey. Like, that's a big shock that some guy wants to, like, I don't know, use swear words, make generalizations, speak in hyperbolic ways or things with crass humor. Who cares? Like, that's okay, fine. Okay, so those are these three things. But what Taylor was doing many times to me was pulling out a joke or something that was crass and saying that that discredited him in other categories, or he should not be allowed to say certain things in a certain way because he may have done that. So first things first, and shame on Taylor for falling into this, because I think he had some good intentions, but they get lost because folks on the left, and not necessarily the liberal population or someone who's more towards a centrist role, but it seems like an increasing group of SJWs, social justice warriors, and leftists don't really want to have a discussion. They want to have a struggle session, right? We're going to try to hold Ethan accountable for this list of things that we were able to find from videos that date back for years. We in the audience don't really get good context of what he's talking about. You're hitting Ethan with something he may not even know or remember that he said. And then, yeah, I want to make sure if you don't watch this channel, and I'm not telling you to watch either channel, or I'm not telling you not to watch either channel. I will spend some time on Taylor to try to figure out if I will enjoy his content or not. I watch Ethan some. I've supported certain campaigns over the last couple months, not all of them. And I don't understand why someone who's talking for 3 hours a day, 5 hours a day, all these different, are held accountable for something that they said, 3 years ago in a fit of rage, or what he might have said to a coworker when he was at DC, or it's irresponsible for Taylor to try to hold that standard. But I know that is the standard, right? That is the, cancel culture, which I know they don't like that term, but reality is this: if you have people who are trying to use something that is unrelated to your job or profession, right? It's not related to what Ethan does for a living. No one was going to Ethan to say, your work stinks, you're subpar, you're missing too many deadlines, blah, 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 I don't want to work with you, or this is the problem, we're going to let you go, or not renew your contract. It is, you said this, it's hurtful, I don't agree with your politics, I don't like you anymore, and that's kind of where they got to. And Taylor's doing this tactic where he's basically playing a cancel culture game with Ethan the whole time, like, I got you, or creating this scenario of hypocrisy, like, oh, see, Ethan, you were mean when you said this, so when someone overhears mean, you can't have it both ways. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute, we're mixing up topics. And he did this throughout the whole thing, like, because Ethan and other folks on his show would make an insensitive joke, let's say about the China, or they would insult a certain comic book. I Am Starfire, and I am guilty as well. That book is awful. Or catch them with the way they would say, oh, this character is ugly and fat, but it's a self-insert, so you're saying it's ugly. Okay, this is all just low blow nonsense. And if you're expecting me to sympathize with your take, Taylor, or this leftist take or attack on Ethan, it isn't going to work because it doesn't make any sense. The standard is not the same. That's the problem with the entire argument. The entire argument is end up in Ethan's favor because the standard to someone on the right and the left is not the same. Donald Trump and Joe Biden are not being held to the same standards, right? Comic book creators like Gail Simone, right, have said things on Twitter stirring up trouble. We saw it with Donnie Cates. You see it with others. And I'm like, I can't believe this stuff's happened. And again, I'm coming into this in the fourth quarter and late and naive. Like, I know comic book creators from shows and meeting them, getting a scribble on a book that I had in my box so I was a little bit cooler. Maybe I showed my kids. You know, I don't really post this stuff on eBay. I don't really care. I don't, it's not what they're for. They're just for like a memory and a fun story or whatever, right? And I got to say, 99% of the time, most of those people were fine. Actually, most of the people that were not fine were more like the Hollywood types or the voice actor groups and things like that than it was the comic book creators. Comic book creators have always been really, really cool. And to come to find out that most of them are just nasty people in real life, or they have gotten nasty or nastier, was really disheartening. And I've really had a hard time over the last few months looking at things the same way, feeling the same. And then I have these comic book creators going on this channel and these shows, just being honest and transparent with their stories, different things that have happened. And then to have Taylor trying to backdoor all of that into something that doesn't add up. Like, it's not, you can't tell me that Ethan's example of, oh, I can't draw a cover of Green Lantern with him shaking Hal Jordan's hand the same way we had this Obama Spider-Man issue is 100% true. That Obama Spider-Man cover to me is revolting, not because of hatred of Obama, because it represents something that is not equal to the opposite, right? Go look at anything that Eric Larson has done. Eric Larson has these anti-Trump things. I've over the last couple of months, I've looked at different things that have been published that I haven't seen and been up to date on, and I've just been shocked at some of the vitriol that's included towards the right. And I don't understand how Taylor or these other folks think that Comicsgate is only to blame. Like, we're only going to blame these guys. They're the problem. And be honest, I got to be honest. I don't care about these insults. And I'm really sorry, Taylor. You are way too sensitive if you can't handle the term soy boy. You brought that up, I mean, probably a half a dozen times, man. I'm telling you right now, bro. If the worst thing in your life is someone's calling you soy boy, you've got some first world problems, my friend, because reality is the world calls us names way worse than that most of the time. And these guys are putting themselves out there for hours on end. So I can't imagine the crap that's in their chat. I've seen some stuff pop up and I just kind of roll my eyes. But the other thing that it to me is very interesting is this sort of, guilt by association. Ethan is responsible for the worst thing that someone who may have seen his channel or uses a hashtag comic, because to me, that's what I thought Comicsgate was. I didn't realize it was this quote movement. I've never found anything where it's an actual organization. I think Ethan may be trying to copyright it or something, but I thought it was like a hashtag. So am I supposed to hold Ethan solely responsible, or John Malin solely responsible, or something like that for some crazy person who says something with the hashtag? Because that's not going to fly, right? Let me give you this. Let me give you this little clip here, and maybe it'll help kind of explain one of the things I thought was very, very telling. It kind of it's commentary about it, but I thought that it reflected. So she calls herself Madeline Swan. I'm not going into that nonsense anyway. She is what she is. Listen to what she has to say here for a second.
I mentioned to him my concerns that I felt like
she's talking about the channel and the streaming on a different thing and the idea of the debate and all that. So anyway, go ahead. She's going to get
Ethan was just going to decide that he had won anyway. He creates his own reality, and all of his followers just parrot those realities.
Okay, hold on. First off, I don't know that I heard Ethan declare he won, or maybe she's perceiving that he thinks he won, or he thinks he knows it all, because he's not willing to concede even the point that sometimes Taylor was making. I got to be honest, I thought Ethan was overly polite with some of the stuff. Like, why are we still hashing on this? And why are you in front of your computer Googling like sales statistics? You're trying to compare something 10 or 15 years later, saying that reflects the whole comic book industry sales and all that. I was actually tuning out at that point. He was losing me. I don't understand how this guy thinks we're going to start squabbling over comic books that make 30, 40,000 copies. And look, I'm a fan of the 90s. I know it was insane and inflated and all of that. But if you're telling me that you've got some success story with a Venom comic book that's supposed to be the end all be all and it sold 200,000 and went to multiple printings and that's supposed to reflect things are healthy, I'm like, okay. But when I have to hear that there's also books called Squirrel Girl who can defeat Thanos, and I pick up Captain Marvel, who's been canceled and restarted like 6 times, I'm not particularly interested in your argument there, Taylor. You're not making a lot of sense to me, but again, I'm coming to this a little bit late. And it's, oh, only Ethan's followers are parroting. Okay, listen, man, I'm sorry. I don't want to be rude, but you have people from the normies all the way up to news anchors that are parroting. We are in an age of intellectual laziness and a lack of responsibility for things that people do online. It's unprecedented. And if you think I'm supposed to hold Ethan or someone else accountable because they said something and people parrot it, well, yeah, because it happens all day long. Where do you think all these memes come from? I mean, the naivete of the left is so strange sometimes. And she comes at this with a lot of baggage. She obviously has some disdain for Comicsgate and whatever. But let me see what else she said here real quick.
There was a person called Renfamous.
Oh, she talks about some interview that he had done, and he was all insensitive and rude and whatever. And I'm not going to waste my time tracking that down. But she did say this. I want to fast forward just a little bit here. I want to hit on something else that she said.
It is that they are a problem, but we already know they're a problem.
We already know they're a problem. Ma'am. You have to understand that you're coming at this with you're already so biased and anti. All of your comments are not even remotely objective. I at least was trying to be transparent with where my skin is in the game. I've never talked to Ethan in years. I haven't been to a comic show in several years, let alone if I saw him at the most recent one I saw. But I've never been on his show or anything like that, right? I am not buying into he's a hater. He's a member of the hate. These are hate group. I don't even know what you're defining as a hate group, let alone this. We've already decided. Who's the we? Because Dan Slott did the exact same thing on his Twitter page. I want to get to this, right? He said something about something was said, whatever. I don't know this whole history with this guy. I guess he told his fans to F off at one point. And whoa, there goes the lightning. Welcome to Florida, folks. Whew, it's a crazy day today for some rain. Dan Slott made this comment about, well, if you see somebody say something awful, go into their history, find things, and turn them into Twitter so they'll take their Twitter down. And I'm like, wow, that's a terrible thing to say to your fans. And I was just trying to catch up. I've heard Dan Slott's this great artist on Spider-Man. I'm trying to catch up on some Spider-Man stuff, so I'd follow him on Twitter. I saw this. And I was like, wow, that's really off-putting. And I said, well, I guess it depends on what the word awful means. So, and the day went on. I didn't think much about it. And I thought, well, the guy's probably just going to make a quick comment back, right? He's on Twitter all day. I see he posts these cool pictures and things like that from time to time. And then I was blocked. I'm like, well, what did I do? I asked a question about why is it awful? Next thing I know, I saw a video where somebody was talking about this story, and I realized they made a joke. He just unfollows people all the time. If he doesn't like the people that you're following or that you like, he'll just unfollow you or block you. And I'm like, oh, okay. So it's not just about parroting. It's about parroting the talking points that you agree with and people believing what you believe, and that's how you're supposed to take it. So Sorry.
There are a lot of articles about them as a hate group,
Same nonsense.
a harassment
Same
campaign.
nonsense.
They aren't.
I have not seen anything that's showing me where, you know, and maybe there was stuff from years ago. I'm not even about to get into all that or not. But if you're supposed to make me pretend that I'm supposed to believe the media that we have right now, sorry.
A fan of diversity. The issue to me.
Okay, fan of diversity. I want to stop there because this is one of the biggest things that Taylor kept bringing up. She's bringing up, and like I said, I'm not sure I totally understand where the people on the left are coming from with what they're trying to accomplish, where they have gender swapped, race swapped, sexuality is being changed, powers are never explained. You have Mary Sue syndrome. You have all these different things. And I haven't read a lot. I don't want to spend money on things I don't like. So I've read some stuff, mostly through things like Ollie's or bookstores, where I can kind of get an idea of what's going on. I've seen a lot of videos on some of this stuff where people are literally showing you every single page. And what I'm shocked by is that these people had got it through an editing process, but then trying to say things. My first fallacy, and I think Ethan brought this up when he was talking about the I am not Starfire, is, well, it's not for you. What a load of crap. It can still be crap, and we can still comment on being crap even if it's not for me. But even when we were collecting as teenagers, even into college, you would pick up X-Men Adventures, Batman Adventures, kiddie books, and look at them. And some of them were pretty cool. There was no judgment just because they were little kid books. But if I picked up the little kid's book by today's standard, and suddenly you have only effeminate males, every character's gay, they're dropping swear words, sometimes profane F-bombs. They're talking about adult topics like sex all the time. I don't care if they're from me or not. Some of this stuff is not appropriate, shouldn't be in school libraries, and deserves some criticism accordingly. Listen, they can still publish it and do what they want to do, but don't come crying to me when you can only sell, 20, 30, 40,000 copies of just trash. Don't tell me how Squirrel Girl, who, I don't even understand half of what this character is supposed to say or do, but she could defeat Thanos. Like, that is one of the most absurd, and I don't even totally understand the Galactus issue I saw. You can't have characters outside the scope of their powers. You can't have characters completely changed. You can't tell me killing off characters that have been around for all these years. It was like a gimmick before, and they come back. Now it's like, oh no, we killed them off, and they're all being replaced with female versions, black versions, gay versions. What? I'm like, okay. Once or twice is one thing. No one cares, and we don't believe you. You're lying. There have been gay characters for decades. There's been black characters before I was reading comic books. There's women in comic books, of comic books, and for comic books for years. You're a liar. You're lying to people. Frank Miller left Daredevil, and you know who took over? A woman who did a great job. You know who was behind DC during some of Miller's heyday? A woman. You're a crock. You're a liar. So stop with all this nonsense. And Taylor, you're just buying in to this crap. That's why they're calling you these names like Soy Boy, because you're not pushing back on some of the narratives that don't make sense. And you even did it during the debate with Ethan. He would say things. He's like, "Well, I don't hold that against you," and you'd be like, "Oh, I would never do that. I apologize for this." Or what, dude? Come on, just stop. I don't know why we can't have real conversation with people, and we're all worried about this sort of like third-party anonymous criticism, especially when like half the world knows some of this stuff's bots and fake, or a fake account by someone else. Or I can't relate. Now, I don't agree with Ethan either. I'm not a big fan of the profanity and some of the carry on. I don't care. He doesn't care. He doesn't need to entertain me all the time. I can check in, have a laugh. I enjoy the little clips he does at the beginning of his shows, probably more than some of the content sometimes, to be honest. It's great. It's fine. I can have entertainment. And I hope Taylor's show is the same, where I can enjoy some of it, because I really would like to have good content. That's really all I care about. So the last thing I wanted to get to was this bizarre standard of Comicsgate needed to even be defended or discussed. Like, I mean, it's fine that Ethan wanted to try to do that. I don't understand what his goal was to accomplish, other than maybe trying to spread the word to folks that don't know much about it, or maybe try to disprove a myth or two. But reality is, it didn't seem as though Taylor was really interested in separating Comicsgate, the hashtag that might be used by people who are harassing people, Comicsgate as the hashtag for his show, or Comicsgate how they see it and define it. Because he was he spent too much of his time, it was more interested in trying to get gotcha moments with something Ethan had said or done, with someone that in Comicsgate had said or done. And it was just, it really just goes to show that this is a left-right divide, where I see people on the right going into conversations with good intentions, trying to have conversation with people. Dave Rubin shows a great example of this. And people on the left coming in with an agenda, trying to get sound bites, trying to get gotcha moments, trying to trip you up. And if we can't get to a healthy discourse, and if we can't get to a healthy discourse in comic books, then how the heck are we going to have a healthy discourse about things that are real serious and matter more? So that was my thought on it. I hated to even get into like a heavier political theme on the Pops channel, but I know we're not going to have time for it on tomorrow night's news talk show, so I want to throw it on here. So anyway, tell me what you think. Maybe you think I'm crazy. Maybe you have a Comicsgate story you can share or whatever. That's fine too. Or maybe you agree and you like Ethan or whatever. That's fine too. So anyway, thanks for your time, and I'm Pops.